South Korea has a high uncertainty avoidance index, which reflects that the country will not tolerate risk-taking and uncertainty. South Korea is a high-power decent country, which means the society will accept any inequality and power differences, especially from the corporate perspective. South Korea is a country that falls under a collectivist country because the society focuses on group well-being and goals. Due to the Confucianism culture, the Koreans prefer to create a long-term commitment and connections in groups. South Korea is a feminine country as they emphasize feminine characteristics such as modesty and nurturing. South Korea is a long-term oriented country because most of the Koreans focuses on the company's growth instead of one-time profit. Most of the employees are motivated to achieve the continuous success and improvement throughout the year. South Korea is a restrained country that values leisure time and will fulfill all its desires. They also believe that social norms that limit society's leisure time and desires are not relevant.
A second important cultural framework, Global Leadership and Organizational Behavior Effectiveness Research Program, or known as GLOBE, that was founded by Robert House in 1991. Aside from the creation of Hofstede Cultural Dimensions, the GLOBE Cultural Dimension is a more modern attempt to understand cultural dimensions. In comparison to Hofstede's 6 cultural dimensions, the GLOBE project discovered 9 cultural dimensions: power distance, uncertainty avoidance, future orientation, institutional collectivism, in-group collectivism, assertiveness, gender egalitarianism, human orientation, and performance orientation. Note that some of these dimensions are identical to those uncovered by Hofstede. The only 2 cultural dimensions unique to the GLOBE project are performance orientation and human orientation. While Hofstede's study mainly focused on values, the GLOBE project focuses on both practices as is and values should be. The practices indicating how society is practicing the dimensions today, whereas the values indicating how the society should be practicing the dimensions according to their belief. Hence, each dimension will be measured twice.
The first Trumpenaar's value dimension is Universalism versus Particularism. South Korea has a particularist culture as they have the tendency to protect the person and a relationship even if they must break rules. Individualism versus Communitarianism. South Korea has a high communitarian culture. They often use the term our or uri rather than my or ne. They would say our father when referring to their own father than saying my father. Next is neutral versus emotional. South Korea has a neutral culture. It is believed that the cause of the awkwardness to portray emotions in public is because of their education system that prioritizes memorizing knowledge rather than creative thinking. Specific versus diffuse. South Korea has a diffuse culture. It is highly related to them having a communitarian culture. Good relationships are important to meet business objectives, hence they often spend time outside of office hours with their colleagues. South Korea's culture is ascription. It is a cultural value where status is awarded based on family background in Korea. They perceive people with higher status or rank carries higher responsibilities and rights even when they haven't achieved much. Besides that, South Korea also has a synchronous time culture. They are less concerned with time constraints and will conduct several tasks at a time, employing an intuitive approach. Lastly, South Korea definitely has an outer direction culture. This is related to the concept of harmony and saving face that is important in Korea.
Like the country, Samsung also has universalism culture. They hire only the most qualified employees to reduce the trial and error costs, has clear guidelines for work processes, and they right now are reducing hierarchy in their organization by frequently held meetings among business division and employees. Samsung actually started with communitarian culture but switched to individualistic. Currently, they have more flexible working hours, no dress code during weekend shifts, and employees are no longer forced to join drinking session after working hours. However, Samsung has a neutral culture where it is difficult for employees to open up about their emotions in the company. Most of the workers in Samsung are very disciplined with their tasks even if they have difficulties to do so. Besides, Samsung is in the process of changing its seniority-oriented culture, which shows that they have a specific culture. This leads to them having more online discussions and reduced physical meetings, and the employees don't have to spend time working outside of their working hours. Moreover, Samsung has achievement culture as they are passionate for excellence, which also motivates the workers to do the same. Samsung are known for its sequential time culture as the workers are expected to work proactively until the job is completed. Employees must finish their work before office closes at 4 and all tasks should be held after, where it allows the worker to stay punctual. Finally, Samsung has internal direction culture. Samsung employees value changes when it comes to technological innovation, as this will ensure them to stay relevant in the market and have long-term competitive advantage against their rivals.
There are some similarities between South Korea and Samsung. For instance, both South Korea and Samsung adapt on a neutral culture. Koreans find it difficult to express their feelings in public, just like Samsung employees. They find it challenging to express their feelings at their workplace. However, others have revealed many differences between South Korea and Samsung. For example, South Korea is particularistic, while Samsung is universalist. It is because Korean managers said they would bend the tools for a friend, implying that they would prioritize relationship over laws and norms, while Samsung has a distinct work execution perspective, which means they have a set of rules or guidelines for work procedures. Besides that, South Korea is an ascription culture, while Samsung is an achievement culture. This is because it symbolizes Korean culture principle of awarding status based on family origin. While Samsung is an achievement culture, this is due to Samsung's commitment to excellence. Generally, South Korea and Samsung have many differences between each other. Therefore, this shows that South Korea company not necessarily follows their society culture.